right, welcome everyone. We're here with another podcast episode of Leading Wyoming with Jerimiah Rieman, who's here at the Governor's Business Forum, and we're going to chat a little bit today about leadership, work, life, all the things. So thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure.
To start out, tell us a little bit about your Leadership Wyoming experience. It was before my time, so what class year were you, and what are a few moments that really stand out in your memory?
Sure, I was in the class of 2009, and it was such a wonderful experience to come into a group and quickly realize the foundation that you're building off of. There's so many incredible leaders that had come before you through the program, and you feel a sense of responsibility to the future group that is ultimately going to be a part of this club, if you will. And it's something that I take very seriously, and trying to continue that leadership, to share that leadership, and to mentor new leaders within our own organization, to do that with family and friends. And another part for me coming out of Leadership Wyoming really was the friendships, probably the most important piece that you come out of. I still maintain so many of those all these years later. And it's really special that many of us, in fact, 4 of us had children during that time frame. My twin boys and 3 others, and my twin boys are friends with each one of those individuals, have gone to summer camp with at least one of them. So it's just a powerful family to be a part of, and honored to have done that.
Oh, that's so neat. It's fun. We've had 2 generations where the parents went through, and then now their kids are old enough to go through. But I'm looking forward to that even 3rd generation, or somebody who was born during the class year, to go through the program. I think that'll be a kind of unique moment in the organization's history. So
I'd be excited to see that, and wouldn't be surprised if one of the children that I just mentioned ultimately do that.
Yeah, that's so awesome. You had a big chunk of your career in state government, and so maybe talk to us a little bit about, was that a good sandbox for learning how community and policy and all of those things work together, and sort of how did you learn through those experiences?
Yeah, it was great for me. Ultimately, it was a change. I came out of college right after September 11th with a degree in natural resource, recreation, and tourism, and largely the tourism industry was gone, at least as I knew it, and the opportunities that I knew. So I had to pivot, and ultimately found an opportunity here at the University of Wyoming to start my career. And one of the things that has stuck with me throughout time was Jonathan Downing. He was one of my clients at the time, and ultimately recognized something in me and said, hey, I really think you should take my job when I leave. And he was in policy at the Department of Workforce Services. So he really took me out of my comfort zone, and invested his energy and thought towards me. And it's been great to have others that have done that. I think of Governor Friedenthal and Governor Meade recognizing something, and their staffs recognizing something in me. And again, I talked about responsibility in the first question. I continue to think about that for others, because I wouldn't be here today had somebody else not invested in me. So it was a great learning ground for me on so many policy issues as well, that have served me well into my current role with the county commissioners.
That's great. We say often in our Wyoming Academy program, that is Economic Development and Community Resilience, that there's no JV team in Wyoming. As soon as you're ready to play, you are on varsity. And as soon as you're ready to be a playmaker, you can be a playmaker. And we were just listening in the other room to a panel about opportunity. And I think sometimes opportunity in a big city looks like, tall buildings. But opportunity in Wyoming looks like your predecessor saying to you at an early age, like, I want you to have this job, or I think you'll be great in this role someday. And so I think it's hard to quantify that, or it's hard to put that on a poster somehow, but I do think that there's some magic there of, if you want to be a playmaker in Wyoming, you can do it just through hard work and meeting people and doing good work.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and you can carry that from here to great things beyond our borders through service or just the opportunities that come for you. But it is such an honor again to have people recognize that, to have those spaces to be free and play on that canvas and ultimately take some leadership roles and rise up through the ranks.
Yeah. Well, now you're with the Wyoming County Commissioners Association, and I think county commissioners in Wyoming are a group with a lot of influence and understanding what's happening across literally every acre of Wyoming. And so, what things are you proud of that are happening around the state?
Yeah, what's so great about a county commissioner, and this isn't for everyone, but a lot of county commissioners, maybe any public official, come into office as a single issue candidate. Hey, I want to fix the roads, want to work on tax reform. And at least at the county commissioner level, you have to quickly learn that you have so many other responsibilities before you. And I appreciate that most everyone that comes into that role can make that pivot, and they become really down-to-earth, pragmatic people that need to dig into the issues that they're working on. We had an incredible fire season this year. Emergency management is a huge part of a county commissioner's role. We went through a pandemic. It's been impressive to see the commissioners and how they've invested in healthcare, invested their time and effort into helping solve some of our most critical issues like suicide or substance abuse prevention at the local level, and that makes me really proud. Of course, they do the other day-to-day work of land use planning and maintaining roads and ensuring that the funding is there and the direction is there. It's just frankly an honor for me to be able to serve those county commissioners and help to lead them through all of the processes that we do and connecting one another and doing so many of the things that Leadership Wyoming does as well.
Yeah. Part of your role is interfacing with the legislature on behalf of the county commissioners and in conjunction with them. As you think of the legislative session coming up in January, February, what are you looking forward to and maybe what's keeping you up at night that may be on the docket?
Yeah, looking to the legislative session, I've been contemplating this quite a bit. My boys just started high school, and I can only imagine as I had at their age, that nervous energy of walking into a new school year, new classmates from across their school district, but also that opportunity that exists to build new friendships and just it's not different than me walking into a new job or anybody else walking into a new job. In terms of that nervousness, of course, we don't know what the priorities of legislative leadership will be. But I'll be frank, every time that I walk into a legislative session, it's always a nervous space. There's some element of unknown for me and the issues that we're working on. So I don't look at this upcoming session to be really any different for me. I might be working on new issues, I don't know. We'll see what that looks like. But I also think it's, again, pointing to my boys going into high school, that opportunity for new friendships and building new relationships. I think that's an important thing for all of us to remember. These are Wyoming citizens that were elected into positions. I do think that they come with a sense of service and understand that there's a responsibility that they carry forward. And so I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to meet new people, build relationships further where I have them, and continue to celebrate what I think is a good thing, and that is Wyoming, its legislature, its people.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about Wyoming is I call the the law of buying eggs, which is that it doesn't matter if you're in a contentious meeting or a difficult conflict or conversation or something comes up at a county commissioner meeting, we all go buy eggs at the same store. And inevitably you're going to bump into those people who maybe you had a disagreement with or you see the world differently from. And I think it actually holds us to a higher standard that in an urban setting, you can sort of sever ties or you can burn a bridge and you probably won't ever see them, or if you do, it'd be easy to duck out and avoid them. And that's not true in Wyoming. Your kids are going to go to school with them, or you're going to see them at the grocery store. And I like that level of accountability to our words and actions that I think if you like living in a small community and not being anonymous, you have to own up to that level of, running into people in the strangest of places.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Frankly, I'm an open book.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to know where my positions stand on any given issue, and so I don't want to play hide the ball.
Yeah.
I know that these are my friends. I can think to my first session in my current role. I was walking into probably the most contentious issue of that legislative session, and on the other side was one of my good friends, Jonathan Downey, that I mentioned, and here I've got to go against him.
Yeah.
We both agreed that at the end of the day we're walking out friends, and I would see him conversing with his client who really wanted to put the screws to me, but he was very diligent of saying, you know what, we have a responsibility to one another. He's a good guy. We're going to do our jobs, and then we're going to walk away. And I think you're right. Absolutely, we've got to have that accountability with one another, and it's great to reciprocate and do that myself.
Yeah. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. I think also in Wyoming, our lives just have a proximity to each other that we sort of see life happening close up. And so you had a cool project a couple years ago of writing a guidebook for the state of Wyoming. So maybe talk a little bit about that. And then I know also recently your family's gone through a couple of health challenges. And so how do you kind of navigate the whole piece of you as a leader in a public position, but you have your own personal interests and you have your family and you also have to take care of yourself? So yeah, how do you do all that?
It's never easy, obviously. You're right, I had the good fortune of going on an adventure and ultimately producing a guidebook to mountain biking in Wyoming. And quite frankly, the writing and that whole process was pretty darn special, but had I just walked away with a pile of papers and the experience, it would have been worth every bit of what I put into that. And ultimately, to bring that back to my family, it was a lot of time away from my family. In
because
fact,
you went and rode every area and not every trail maybe, but many of them.
So I committed that I would not put anything in there that I had not experienced myself.
That's amazing.
So I did experience every single one of those. And had to send my family on 2 week-long vacations elsewhere so that I could go out and do that. And ultimately, of course, they had that tug of, come home, Dad, we want more of you here. What are you doing? What is this book thing? But I'll tell you, I got the first copy from my publisher and left it on the counter, still in its wrapping, because I ultimately wanted to take that out to a trail and open it up there and experience that. And so we went out as a family, and my kids, my wife, frankly stole the book away from me and are just sitting there reading away.
Yeah.
And
I love it.
and I think they finally understood what I was doing, and that was pretty powerful for me, and I've appreciated their support to do that. You're right, we've experienced some health challenges. It's not been an easy thing, in particular for my wife, but at the end of the day, we have a wonderful community, and my wife is not from Wyoming and didn't know quite where she fit in to this space that we have here. And quite frankly, when she got her diagnosis, the outpourings of support and love, she knows.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think living in community is a beautiful thing, and sometimes being the ones receiving help and receiving support can actually feel harder than being the ones giving the extra hand. And I think as leaders we have to remember that too, that sometimes we get to be the one giving the hand and encouraging the person along, and sometimes in our lives we need that support and let that community rally around us.
Yeah, it's been really helpful for us, to have to say you need a little bit of help and to receive that, be open to that. It is a mindset change for us, but it's been so wonderful, and we're so deeply appreciative of our Wyoming family in that regard. And it's been a reminder of us, again, to do a little bit more to give back. In fact, I was just driving over this morning and had heard somebody else that had a similar diagnosis to my wife, and so I picked up the phone and just made a phone call and said, I'm going to check in on you on occasion. And it's nothing to send a text or pick up the phone and do that. So we're going to do it.
Making it happen. Aw, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thinking back on your career that maybe started here at the University of Wyoming, what advice would you give the, let's say, 23-year-old or 25-year-old version of yourself?
Yeah, there are three things. The first one is to be mindful of your time and to really invest in friends and family. And for me, I should have done a better job of investing, and particularly in my wife. I felt that I had a job in front of me. I could do one more thing. And I think I quickly learned as I moved through my 20s that taking a step back and really understanding that I probably got more done when I did less. And I know that's hard to kind of fathom that, but when I just prioritized what was the most important in terms of my work, I could invest more in my family at home. For me, health is a really important thing, and particularly this season that we're in our lives. And so I would encourage anybody, maintain that health that you have in your youth. It's a heck of a lot easier to do that than it is to try and regain it. And I think the third one that comes to my mind that I would have told myself at that point in time is really to read more. I've been pushing myself to read a couple books a month. I'm well exceeding that. But I think I needed it for my personal, just some sort of enjoyment element, but also a learning phase. And I really do impress on myself to make sure that half of that reading is for learning. In particular, I like to look at history, and I think that can help better frame some of the things that we're going through now, that we have been through these periods in our history, and we've come out a better place as a result of each one of those moments in time. And so I think those are three things that I would have told myself at that point.
Yeah. How about for people listening to this, what are maybe 2 books you've read this year that really stood out to you or you would recommend?
Yeah, so the one book that really shocked me, it was kind of out of my comfort zone in terms of the traditional things that I read, was The Dog Stars. And I'm not going to remember the author, but I do recommend that. It does have a pandemic element, futuristic element, but the underlying message that kind of comes out through the story, it was really, really powerful for me to read that in particular. I've read a couple of books of Churchill and Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, trying to understand how they worked through each of their administrations, who they surrounded themselves with, which surprisingly for some is that they weren't necessarily like-minded individuals. And I think that's important for us to remember, that we really should sharpen ourselves by surrounding ourselves with people that aren't yes men or women and might have a different perspective than us.
Yeah, I was actually just presenting to Wyoming Workforce Services last week and talked about how if you have a conflict with a colleague or just a challenge at work, that so often we run to vent to somebody who thinks like we do, or to sort of plead our case and have them rubber stamp of you were wronged, or you did it right. And really what we should be doing is thinking, who do I know who's the most like the person I'm struggling with? And this was kind of in a multi-generational framework. They wanted to talk about multi-generational workforce. But so who do I know that's like this person who I'm struggling with? And let me go get their perspective, because chances are it's easier for me to change my own lens of the world than to convince you to change your lens of the world.
Right.
But it can be hard to find those people who you have trust and rapport, they believe in you, and they're willing to ask the hard question or push back a little bit of like, I think you might be overplaying this, or I think you might have a blind spot here. And I think we see that happen in Leadership Wyoming, that you have this group of 40 people who aren't your colleagues, they're not your family, they're in your corner, but they're not just there to tell you you're right all the time. And so you get to have that kind of sharpening and reconsidering away from the environment, and then hopefully go back a little more wise for that time. So, yeah. Okay, well, maybe as we close out, we're here at the Governor's Business Forum talking about, where's Wyoming headed? How can Wyoming be great? And so what would be your vision of Wyoming in maybe 20 years from now, and what do you think it will take to get there?
Yeah, I ultimately hope that we do remain that small community with really long streets, that we can continue to sit down with one another, that despite our differences, we can still find those places where we can champion something together. I've been blessed to see that through my life and career in this great state. I hope that continues, because I think our values, our ethos here is something that we need to celebrate with one another, and continue to get out and enjoy this beautiful canvas that we have as a state, and whether that's enjoying the outdoors, enjoying each other's company across at a coffee shop, whatever it is, just get out and continue to convene with one another.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thanks so much for spending a little bit of time with us.
It was my absolute pleasure. I appreciate you letting me do this.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremiah. Okay, we'll be back soon with another episode.
The Leading Wyoming podcast is made possible thanks to the generous support of our all-in sponsors.